Hey, my name's Shazi, and this is my team. Before we go to the project though, let me introduce everyone. That's Hanyu, that's Patrick, here's Muna, and this is Cheng Cheng. Most of us haven't worked together before, and we're all quite new with each other. Suffice it to say that we were all quite confused when we got put into a group. So that's who I'm working with. I think it's gonna turn out okay, but let's see what they have to say about each other.
So how do you feel about the group you got put into?
I did not know anyone on our group prior to the project. Everyone seems very nice though while we introduce each other, and I think that throughout the year everyone's going to have their strengths and it's going to show, and we're going to develop nicely throughout the year, and hopefully we have a good final project.
How do you think the flow of the project's going to go, and how do you think the group's going to turn out?
Well, firstly, I have no idea what we will be doing throughout the project. Also, I have kind of confused about why Mr. Isabai put us in a group, but I think we'll get along with each other.
At this point in time, we were being prepped to go and see Metrolinx and get their take on the issue firsthand. To ready ourselves, we created a causal model, which is basically a series of paths that somebody can take to get from the start to the completion of a certain task or objective. Our model in particular was on how to create community. This basically means that for anyone new in the company, what can we do to introduce openness and friendliness around the office? Now, this was done to give us an idea of what we can possibly expect to hear from our interviews so that we weren't going in blind. After lots of introduction work on behalf of Mr. Isabai, our teacher, we finally had the chance to go and have a tour of Metrolinx. Here we conducted our interviews with the executive team members and saw what Metrolinx was like. Here's a short montage showing what our day was like visiting Metrolinx. So that's what our trip looked like, and while we were there, we had the chance to speak to some Metrolinx executives about the issue that we were brought up with. We asked some questions and took a lot of notes, and came up with another question for ourselves: how to create a sense of initiative in a workplace. And for this question, we set upon brainstorming two different ways that we could accomplish this. We came up with the different models of freedom and mandatory. Now, the meaning behind each of these is to get people in the company to want to improve themselves and their work. We could either make it mandatory to do certain things, follow certain procedures, and accomplish certain tasks, or we could give people the freedom to make their own decisions, schedules, and work at their own pace, and have the trust that everything will get done in the end. Let's take a look at what the group got out of the interview process.
Did the interview go differently than you expected?
Yeah, we made like 20 questions, but we just asked like 10 questions because we spent most of time on the importance. So that's why it went differently.
After coming up with these models, we had to find out what the meaning behind each of them was. So we spent a bit of time defining them in our own words. Let's see what the team thinks of this process.
So what was the biggest challenge with defining the different models?
Initially I thought it was going to be very simple, but as we did the who, what, where, and when for each model, we really dived into it and found more and more stuff that I hadn't thought of prior to starting it. So that was the biggest challenge.
Well, after a long, hard defining process, we finally move on to what the real benefits are of each of these models. This system is called the Pro chart, and here we discuss the benefits of each model and for which stakeholder this benefit is most crucial to. Our stakeholders ended up being the employees, the management, and the business side of Metrolinx. But then we thought that we needed one more.
Why are funders an important stakeholder?
Well, examples of funders are the provincial and federal government, and the funders give Metrolinx the money they need to successfully finish their projects, and in return the funders would just want communication and results. But funders are important stakeholders. The reason so is because they give, without funding for the projects, Metrolinx wouldn't get their projects done.
Over the next week or two, we spent our time on the Pro charts. First, we came up with the stakeholders, then we filled in 3 benefits for each of them, and we did this for each of the 2 models that we came up with. Next, we came up with some connections between each of the benefits to get a better understanding of what the model means to us. We then narrowed the entire chart down to 5 benefits that were really important to us. This process overall was really important, not only to find benefits of each model, but to help us get a better understanding of what we truly wanted our solution to be like.
What was the most difficult part about the Pro chart?
The most difficult part we ran into while building Pro chart was maintaining quality as we searched for more and more benefits. Obviously it was easier in the beginning, but we tried to dig deeper and deeper as we went on, and that was pretty difficult.
Why did the Pro chart take so long?
So we never done this before, so it's a new thing for all of us. So we have trouble with it. Yeah.
This whole process is really important because it led us to the next step, redefining each of the models. This step was most difficult for us and took us much longer than anticipated. Even though it felt like it was a wasted time, in the end it turned out to be very valuable. The words freedom and mandatory kind of lost meaning at this point, and we were mostly looking for clues throughout the benefits and what the underlying meaning was behind them. In the end though, the words we came up with were stability and empathy. Now here's where it gets tricky to explain. When we look at the word stability, it can seem a little counterintuitive at first. In this sense, stability isn't in the daily routines and practices, but in the mindsets and attitudes of people around the workplace. A stable environment would mean that everyone is able to express themselves and have a good atmosphere. Empathy, we realized, was the culmination of all the benefits which were important to the mandatory model. Closer relations and trust building was the core of what we wanted out of it, so the word empathy encompasses this idea to us. Now it's time to take one step closer to our solution. We came up with a reframe question, which is to guide our thought into what we would want to go into a solution at the end of the project. The question we settled on was how to expand empathy to include expression as well. We felt that the empathy model was a strong version of our final goal, and the expression was our favorite benefit from the other model. So by combining these things, we'd be able to come up with some possible suggestions to lead to our ideal end result. With a lot of help from Mr. Isabai at this stage, we brainstormed some cool things from charity drives to sports events, but we settled on one main thing like we'd like to recommend to Metrolinx: community improving projects. How do people express themselves with stuff like clothing and art and food? Now, within Metrolinx, imagine that you express yourself in the way that you spend your time, and there are many employees which face different challenges personally. Imagine a Metrolinx where employees have the ability to connect with each other on an issue which they feel strongly on. create some meetings between these people, and volunteer in time as a group at a place of charity, like a nursing home or a soup kitchen. And the initiative comes from personal motivation, and the connection is created between these workers who participate in the kind of activities. We have the expression and the empathy because people get to know each other through some of the volunteering and have a chance to share feelings and experiences. And the initiative comes from the heart in the places where they have their own personal motivation.